Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin in Yellowknife, where multiple water main leaks have led to a drastic drop in the city's reservoir this spring. It meant the city had to pump water from an emergency water source, a lot of it. Luke Carroll has that story.
The city is allowed to use a small amount of water from Yellowknife Bay under its water license, but in March, it needed to exceed that amount by 61 times. It was the equivalent of 7.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. All that water because of leaks in the water main. That's what the city said in a letter to the Mackenzie Valley Land and Water Board, who regulates its water license. The city relies on water from Yellowknife River as its main source, and is allowed to withdraw water from the bay for maintenance and in the case of an emergency. One break was in Woolgar Avenue in January. The other occurred in March on 41A Street near the Racket Club. In a letter to the board, the city wrote its reservoir was being depleted faster than it was intaking water.
The purpose behind that large quantity being withdrawn from Yellowknife Bay is the city of Yellowknife has to ensure that we can meet our water consumption for the city, as well as emergency services such as firefighting and providing water to critical infrastructure such as hospitals.
In the end, it was 3 months in a row, with excess water being pumped from the bay, around 90 times the amount the city is licensed to take. Morton says this is the largest amount of water that's had to be pumped from the bay in recent history. Luke Carroll, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Inuit Taparik Kanatami says the latest federal budget is encouraging, but not enough, especially when it comes to investment in housing and infrastructure. ITK says there's also a lack of funding to deal with tuberculosis. The organization's president says the focus of the current Liberal government seems to have shifted.
We have not heard from the Prime Minister or Cabinet that the focus of this government's attention on Indigenous issues has diminished, but we see it in the way in which our issues are not spoken about in the same way as before. Pessimistically, we understand that there's an election that's on the horizon, and perhaps the calculations of the Liberal Party and all parties in the country are not focused on Indigenous policy areas.
Obed also says the politics of the day are not as important as making sure Inuit are treated like other Canadians. He says ITK will work with the resources it has to improve the quality of life for all Inuit. The Canadian Navy is looking to build a relationship with Inuit. It sent its sparkling new vessel to Rankin Inlet to do just that. And while some Inuit are embracing the move, others are skeptical. Noel Kaludjak reports.
The lighting of the traditional kuluk marks the start of the ceremony. About a half-dozen crew from the HMS William Hall came from Halifax, Nova Scotia to meet the people of Rankin Inlet. The commander said it was very important to be here and see and talk to the people about the plans for the ship and the crew.
It is our hope that both the Navy and as a representative of the government, we can show that we find this region to be important, that we want to show that we want to support this region, and that we want to be a part of both lives up here, and also to show proper respect for the people that live here, and to help this region continue to grow in a way that the people who live here want, and that we can help learn from you to help learn how we can best support you in the future moving forward.
HMCS William Hall is the newest ship in the Navy. It was launched this summer. During the ceremony, the crew presented the local officials a couple of hockey sticks and plaques. The commander and the captain were given a chance to try out the traditional drum. Some local officials were in attendance, and Sam Alakalak, representing the Kivalak Inuit Association, remarks that the crew and the ship are welcome and is glad to see a closer connection between the people and the crew of William Hall.
Acknowledges the crucial role the Royal Canadian Navy place in protecting Canadian sovereignty in the Arctic. The establishment of these affiliations not only allow for the continued safeguarding of Canada's Arctic, but also the strengthening of relationships and connections with northern communities.
Elder Monica Ugjuk was asked to perform a ceremonial lighting of the huluk. She is also concerned about the lack of proper communication between the people and the crew of the ship.
I think by now you all know who I am, and honestly, I feel my instincts are warning me to be cautious of this plan. It hasn't been clearly explained to me how this will be helpful and what this new relationship will mean for us.
The crew is hoping to bring the ship into the region next summer to test the waters and visit some communities. The people will be given a chance to see for themselves how the ship looks and meet the entire crew. Noel Kalujak, CBC News, Rankin Inlet.
A new commercial flight option is coming to Iqaluit. Chrono Aviation will begin offering direct flights between Iqaluit and Montreal this summer. That flight will run 4 times a week and cost about $700 each way. Denis Gagnon is the vice president of Chrono Aviation, which is based in Quebec. He says the flight is possible because of an existing charter with Baffinland Iron Mines Corporation.
It's not like we're creating a route that can be at risk of not working, right? It's a route that's going to be there as long as we have the contract with the mining companies, but it's a contract that we're doing since 5 years now, and we're intent to do that for, as long as we live.
Gagnon says booking opens on May 17th, and the first flight will be available on August 6th. Jerry Kassoun is the new commissioner of the Northwest Territories. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced Kassoun's appointment this afternoon. The Inuvialuit-Gwich'in elder worked for the RCMP for 25 years. After retiring from the RCMP, he worked for Parks Canada. He was also the Deputy Commissioner of the NWT from 2011 to 2017. Kassoun replaces outgoing Commissioner Margaret Tom. And in Whitehorse today, a former Yukon Commissioner launched a new book about other former Yukon Commissioners. From Fort Cudahy to Taylor House documents the territory's history of 36 commissioners since 1894. It also talks about how the role of commissioner has changed over the decades. Former Commissioner Angelique Bernard is the author.
And what I hope they take away is the fascinating history of the Yukon. The office of the commissioner really followed the evolution from coming from being so much kind of like a colony from Ottawa, being told by Ottawa what to do, to now having a responsible government with Yukoners making decisions for Yukoners. And I hope that people like the pictures. I'm a visual person, so I really wanted to have a lot of pictures.
Bernard is the first Francophone commissioner of the Yukon. She made it a point to write the book in both English and French. Copies are available for free at the Commissioner's Residence, Taylor House in Whitehorse. 15 finalists have been selected for this year's Arctic Inspiration Prize. Close to $4 million in prize money is up for grabs. It's the largest annual prize in Canada. It gives funding to Northerners who want to better their communities through innovation. One of those finalists is the Inutsiavik Centre. It's an Inuit youth-led initiative dedicated to language and culture revitalization.
There's a lot of community members who would like to learn traditional skills like sewing, making kamik, sealskin boots, or learning how to clean sealskin, learning how to process other animals, making snowshoes, building igloos, making kamutiks. We noticed that that's something that people are really interested in, so we wanted to be able to bring those skills to community members who are interested.
The Northern Territories Youth and Communities Strategy is also a finalist. The project's co-chair says the money would be useful in helping address gaps in housing and education for youth in the North.
It's a multi-generational project that's looking at systemic change, and where we've seen success is it actually has the ability to impact policy, decision-making, training, and also has the ability to help better connect those who need to be involved in conversations during the creation or formation of projects, needs, different aspects like that.
The finalists will be heading to Whitehorse next month, where the winners will be announced. We need to issue a correction now on a piece that ran this past Wednesday. In a story about how we walk with land and water, CBC referred to overlapping land claims in the Yukon Southern Lakes. The region has overlapping traditional territories, but the settlement lands of the Carcross, Tagish, and Kwanlundun First Nations and the Ta'ang Quechan Council do not overlap.
I will not forgive failure. God has chosen us as a new broom to sweep the Vatican clean of corruption.
What would you like to do with your life?
I'd like to be an international star.
Are you a hug?
You're crying.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
Well, God will take his revenge then.
Yes, he will. With our help.
What does it take to reach the top? Join me, Ian Hannah-Mansing, as I get to know some truly inspirational people who share the secrets of their success.
If you want to talk about one moment, it's a moment where I would live or die.
It changed everything on CBC News Explore.
Moments that are so on trend right now. Ticket pricing, artificial intelligence, being a Swiftie, wild fashion trends, showbiz, and cancel culture. Join me, Alameen Abdul-Mahmoud, for Commotion, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sipping on a bit of Henny, can I get a little Remy? Feeling heavy, chilling but I'm feeling ready. Pulled up in a big old Chevy.
Yesterday, you saw part of Johannes Samiak's story. He's an Inuk from Nunatsiavut who was sent to jail for killing his brother. Now he's doing everything he can to stop the pattern of intergenerational trauma and addiction. Today, we hear about his journey towards repairing relationships with his community, and it starts with the sentencing circle. Heidi Adder takes us there.
Broomfield says there's a movement happening, Indigenous people advocating for themselves and others, even from behind bars.
I'm kindly asking to meet with you as I would like to talk to you about my experience in the NL correctional system.
Last November, Semiak started writing, sent letters to the ministers of justice, health, and the superintendent of prisons.
I would like to share with you where I come from and how I grew up, to help you understand how the correctional system has not been helpful to me over the years and how it can be changed to better help Inuit people. The Minister of Justice, he don't realize what he's doing to Indigenous people.
He wants sweeping changes tailored for Indigenous people. It starts, he says, by understanding what Inuit have been through and the ongoing discrimination they still face.
We should get more program in here for like land base, keep people connected to their culture, to their language, to their people, to their elders.
I think it's really a powerful thing. I like to see Inuit and Indigenous people taking more of a voice for themselves and speaking up and challenging any type of service or system that they don't feel is working for them.
I think it's good that people who are experiencing it would try to analyze it and suggest ways to improve it and reflect on it. I think so. I think that probably needs to happen, and I think there probably are no one better situated than an Indigenous person who's experiencing it, right? Because otherwise it just repeats the previous pattern.
For Semiak, this moment is a step towards breaking the pattern. Here in Hopedale, he's taking part in a sentencing circle. There hasn't been one in Labrador for at least the last 5 years. It's where he'll try to make amends, to say sorry, to start anew. Community members and elders will gather as he apologizes to his sister, his partner, his community. Semiak is pledging to work towards sobriety, a future his children can be proud of. But he's a symptom of a greater issue. The group says trauma goes untreated throughout the North Coast. Mental health workers cycle through the community, and without consistent support, there can be no solution. In the crowd, new friends of Semiak who came to support, listen, and learn.
I think it's a huge step moving forward for our community to process things moving forward, and it's a great building tool.
And for him to own it.
Yep.
Opportunity to ask for forgiveness and say he's sorry for what he did. It's amazing.
Just the start of healing for anybody.
Yeah.
Just to say it.
Acceptance. Yeah.
I'm sorry to the community for what happened with my brother and what I put my family through, what I put my kids through. I just want to say I'm really sorry for everything.
For Semiak, this was closing the circle.
I feel a lot better now since the community heard me and heard what I had to say, and I felt a lot more lighter. And I just want this done and over with and get it behind me now. So I'm really glad the hard part is over.
Semiak knows this is just the start and that a long road awaits him.
So my hope is for when I get out, see if I can get some funding from Nuntsavut to help me open up a carving shop to help young people for their for like a therapy. Let them come down and tell them their story for how they was growing up. Let them take it out on the rock. Let them tell their story in the rock.
Earlier this month, Semiak was sentenced to 3.5 years for his role in his brother's death, minus time served. He has 2 years of probation and some unique conditions. 100 hours community service to do things like helping elders in Hopedale. He must stay clean and sober and create a carving, something that illustrates what he is like when he's sober and when he's not. His creation must be presented to the court, and Justice Stacey Ryan hopes he'll display it proudly for others.
I want my community just to know who I really am instead of just an alcoholic. I want to break the cycle for what my father went through. I know I can break the cycle.
Heidi Adder, CBC News, Hopedale. A group of cancer specialists says current Canadian guidelines for recommending screening are outdated, and they say that's putting people's lives at risk. Marina von Stackelberg reports.
Carolyn Holland often wonders how life would be different if she'd gotten a mammogram. Diagnosed with breast cancer at 43, Canada's guidelines recommended against one.
Had I been able to access screening at 40, this wouldn't have been my outcome.
By the time she found the lump, the cancer was advanced, requiring aggressive chemo and a double mastectomy.
This shouldn't be happening, and this shouldn't happen to other women.
A group of cancer experts say the national screening guidelines, created by a task force of family doctors, are up to a decade out of date. Some provinces have gone against them in creating their own screening programs.
But unfortunately, a lot of family physicians are taught and trained to follow the task force guidelines.
Family doctor Anna Wilkinson, who also treats cancer patients, says the national guideline on breast cancer relies on old research.
One trial was 1963 that they're using to determine whether we screen women today, and that is completely irrelevant at this point.
The guidelines lag behind other countries. For example, Canada's task force still recommends against screening for HPV and against a blood test for prostate cancer.
I think they are harming Canadians because they are leading us to diagnose cancers at a later stage when we know survival is worse and when the costs of treatment are more.
The task force says there is a risk in screening too much. It could prompt treatment that's more harmful than the cancer itself. The group does consult with cancer experts, but those experts don't set the guidelines.
Someone who's been researching and advocating in the breast cancer or prostate cancer field for their whole career might have a different view than a neutral group that is trying to make recommendations for family doctors.
You're not saving us from harms, you're putting us in harm's way by denying us screening.
Carolyn Holland says patients like her deserve to know. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Several countries in the Sahel region of Africa are experiencing deadly heat. According to climate scientists, the severity is a result of climate change. And as Anand Ram explains, it could be just a taste of what's to come.
From above and below, a hospital in Niger tries to rehydrate this elderly woman. Her daughter says extreme heat drained the water from her mother's body. A crisis throughout April in the Sahel region of Africa that was made worse when people were fasting for Ramadan.
More people were therefore more exposed to the extreme heat and did not have enough capacity to cool themselves down.
Those nearly 50-degree days in early April especially now being blamed on climate change.
Without human-induced global warming, these temperatures wouldn't have been possible.
That week-long heat wave stretched from Senegal to Mali, Niger, and Chad, a region that knows heat. But even at our current level of global warming, scientists say such an extreme would only be seen once every 200 years. And if the planet continues to barrel towards 2 degrees of warming above pre-industrial temperatures, it's expected to be more like once every 20 years. Also contributing, sea surface temperatures surging to new highs across all oceans.
All that heat is moving really northward from the Gulf of Guinea into West Africa and creating, this heat that we are seeing.
In Mali, that heat has killed, with a hospital reporting more than 100 people dying over a few days earlier this month. Say experts, a disproportionate climate burden for a region that pumps far less carbon into the atmosphere.
The parts of Africa which are impacted at the moment are contributing close to nothing to the actual emissions, meaning that they are basically experiencing the consequences of the deeds of other people elsewhere.
Forecasts suggest the region could see this deadly heat well into June, and experts warn as farmers ready their crops for the typically rainy season, they need to take precautions to avoid heat stroke and dehydration. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
Grocery costs continue to rise for Canadians. Baby formula is among the items getting more expensive. The price has jumped 30% in the past 2 years, according to Statistics Canada. As Angela McIver reports, it's forced some new parents to seek donations.
As Samantha Nicholson feeds her 5-month-old Lila, she can't help but think about the cost of formula. It's constantly on her mind.
Laying awake in bed wondering if you're going to be able to feed your kid it's a gross feeling. It's very not nice, and it's just something that feels very out of your control.
Nicholson and her husband Adam have 3 children under the age of 4. All were fed with formula. Since having their first baby, the price of this liquid gold has skyrocketed.
Now it's $43.99 for the same amount that in 2021 I was paying $28.99.
Shadia Foster has experienced a similar level of shock with her Lila.
It was just really disheartening to see the high cost and the lack of variety in different formulas.
She says in the last 2 months, cheaper store-brand formula has been nearly impossible to find. And Foster often speaks to other parents who simply can't afford what's left.
There are women who are saying they'll drive anywhere to get coupons. We shouldn't have to do that. We should be able to easily go out and buy formula that's affordable and feed our babies.
At the North Grove in Dartmouth, staff have also witnessed a surge in desperation. The center offers resources including food for families in need. One of the most popular requests, formula.
I would say of every 7 parents who come in asking for it, we're able to provide for 1.
Wendy Fraser says many parents choose not to eat themselves or stretch their formula supply to make it last longer. This family physician has also talked to patients who water it down.
It's a concern because the actual formula will lose its nutritional value. It's supposed to be made in a certain way to be prepared, obviously. If you water it down, you're going to lose some of that nutritional value, and that's going to adversely affect the health of the baby as well.
The North Grove is one of several organizations that received provincial money last week to help pay for nutritional programs. But while Fraser says it will certainly help, a longer-term plan is needed to address the growing overall food crisis. Angela McIver, CBC News, Dartmouth.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. We leave you with a look at tomorrow's weather. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good weekend.
What happens when we transform the country into one massive obstacle course? 20 total strangers are about to find out.
Okay, game on!
Relationships will be forged and crushed.
I want to rip their heads up.
In an all-out battle for glory.
Oh my God! I'm glad that there's cameras around. Yeah, me too. Do it in, replay.
Only one thing's for sure. They are not ready for what's coming.
Let's go, baby!
I'm such a fan of this show.
Listen to the podcast, Q with Tom Power.
The story itself is so unbelievable.
The industry wasn't set up for me to thrive in.
The presence I feel now is not something that I believed to be possible in the past.
So many people thought I couldn't do it. They doubted me.
I felt like I ripped my whole heart out.
I didn't realize how formative 25 to 30 would be.
I have to kind of repress my own self-doubt.
You're one of my favorite interviewers, so I was pumped.
Get out of here.
Q with Tom Power. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello. Dad is the master of marketing.
So handsome, both of them. How big is my face? Bigger.
Dad's a superstar wherever he goes.
2, 1.
Go back to
Daddy marketing works.
Her particular skill set can be helpful to us.
She's a con artist.
I need to get off that boat and back to being a full-time detective, and you need to stay out of prison. The best way we do that is to keep our heads down and do as we're told.
Sipping on a bit of Henny. Can I get a little Remy? Feeling heavy. Chilling, but I'm feeling ready. Pulled up in a big old Chevy. Dance floor stops and Miguel them drops. Queen with the locks and the crown on top. Feet in a box, never sound on pops. If it ain't the Henny, give me crown on rocks.
What does it take to reach the top? Meet some truly inspirational people as they share the challenges and secrets of their success. It changed everything on CBC News Explore.
What do we know
about that with Andrew Chang?
I think we can explain.
Watch free on CBC Gem.